Hey guys, tonight we're not just visiting history. We're going to step into a pair of well-worn, sweat-stiffened calici, those iconic Roman military sandals, and try to survive a single day as a legionary in the mightiest empire the world had ever seen. Picture the early morning chill in Gaul, or the dusty, insect-humming heat of Syria. You're not a general, not an emperor. You're the backbone, the grunt, the anonymous face in a century of 80 men. The air smells of damp wool, cold ashes from last night's watchfire, and the unmissable, earthy scent of a latrine trench that's just a little too close to camp. You probably won't survive this, and not just because of enemy spears. The day-to-day grind of being a Roman soldier was a masterclass in endurance, a constant assault on the body and spirit that would break most modern sensibilities before noon. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And, as always, I'd love to hear where in the world you're listening from and what the local time is for you. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Your day begins not with a bugle, but with the centurion's fine staff, the vitus, rapping sharply on the leather tent flap. That sound is the soundtrack of your life, a promise of pain if you're slow. You groan, your muscles screaming from yesterday's 30-mile forced march with a full pack. You slept on the ground, maybe on a thin reed mat if you were lucky, wrapped in your sagum, your heavy woolen cloak. No cozy sleeping bag, no air mattress. Just you, the hard-packed earth, and the guy next to you snoring like a bull. You stumble out into the gray pre-dawn. First task? Not breakfast. Not coffee. You dismantle the entire camp. This is a non-negotiable, daily reality. The famed Roman marching camp wasn't a permanent base, it was a nightly fortress built from scratch. You and your contubernium, your 8-man tent squad, are responsible for striking your leather tent, packing the mule, and falling into formation. Every piece of equipment has a place, and the centurion's eagle eye misses nothing. A poorly rolled pack means extra duties, or worse, a taste of the vitus across your shoulders. Now, you're marching. This is what you do more than anything else. Fight? That's a rare, chaotic climax. March? That's your job. You trudge. The modern legionary reenactor's kit weighs about 45 pounds, and historians still argue whether that's lighter or heavier than the real thing. You're carrying your lorica, the segmented plate armor that's brilliantly flexible but feels like a portable oven in the sun. Your helmet, the galea, presses on your brow. On your back is a sarcina, a pole from which dangles your mess kit, a wicker basket for foraging, a saw, a pickaxe, a stake for the palisade, and several days' worth of hardtack rations. Your feet, laced into those calici, are a mosaic of blisters and calluses. The open sandal design is genius for preventing foot rot on long marches, but it also lets in every stone, thorn, and pile of animal dung on the road. You're not walking on a nice, flat modern highway. You're on a rutted, muddy, or dust-choked track, in a column that stretches for miles, breathing the dust kicked up by the man in front of you. After hours of this, a halt is called. Relief? Hardly. Pon sarcinas, put down your packs. It's time for drill. This is where the Roman war machine is forged, not in battle, but in repetitive, soul-deadening practice. You form up, raise your heavy scutum shield, a curved rectangle of wood, leather, and brass that weighs over 20 pounds, and begin the thrusts. Not at an enemy, but at a wooden post. Thrust, recover. Thrust, recover. The centurion barks corrections. Your arm burns. Then, you practice the testudo, the tortoise formation, locking shields overhead and to the sides with the precision of a machine. It's claustrophobic, hot, and one wrong move earns the wrath of the entire century. The mainstream historical fact here is the sheer engineering and logistical brilliance of the Legion, a self-contained, mobile building and fighting force that could lay down 15 miles of road or construct a fortified camp in a matter of hours. But the quirky, fringe tidbit is what they might have been chanting while they worked. While Hollywood gives us silent, grim legions, some sources suggest they sang marching songs, chanted insults at their centurion, behind his back, of course, or even recited dirty poems to keep the rhythm. Imagine thousands of men, trudging under the weight of empire, singing what was essentially a first-century version of a rugby chant. Finally, as the sun reaches its peak, you stop. Time to build tonight's camp. You thought the marching was hard? Now you do manual labor. You swing your pickaxe to dig the perimeter ditch, the fossa. You haul the excavated dirt to form the rampart, the agger. You then plant the sharpened stakes you've been carrying all day into that rampart to form the palisade. This is backbreaking, constant work. And if you're on a more permanent campaign, you might be building bridges, clearing forests, or quarrying stone. The Roman soldier was as much a construction worker as a warrior. Your reward? Dinner. The core of your diet is Siberia, wheat grain. You'll grind it with your portable hand mill and make it into a gruel, pulse or hardtack biscuits. You might get some lardum, bacon, some cheese, some sour wine, pasca cut with water and vinegar. It's monotonous, barely sufficient, and you're always hungry. You supplement by foraging, buying from camp followers, or, if you're really unlucky and supplies are cut, you might be reduced to boiling leather. Discipline hangs over this entire existence like a cloud. The centurion's vitus is just the beginning. Minor infractions could mean fatigue duties, ration reductions, or flogging. But the true terror is decimation. If a unit showed cowardice or mutiny, 1 in 10 men would be chosen by lot to be clubbed to death by their own comrades. It was as much psychological as physical punishment, forcing every man to be both potential victim and executioner. You live with these men, you fight with them, you call them brother. And you might have to beat one to death on the orders of a remote, disgusted general. This is the glue, brutal and terrible, that held the legions together. As you finally settle by the watchfire, chewing your hardtack, rubbing your feet, you hear the sounds of the camp, the low murmur of men, the clank of armor being repaired, the distant cough of a mule. Your body is a catalog of aches. Your mind is numb with routine. You've survived the day. But tomorrow, at dawn, the centurion's staff will rap again. And you'll do it all over. There's no discharge, no 5-year plan. Your service is 25 years. 25 years of blisters, ditch digging, and the constant, low-grade fear of the vine staff or the lottery of the decimation. You look at your hands, raw and cracked. You wouldn't last a day. You probably wouldn't last the first morning's march before dreaming of the quiet, safe boredom of your own life, far from the glorious, grinding engine of Rome. The vine staff's echo fades, replaced by a different, more insistent rhythm, the thrum of your own heartbeat as you stand before a heavy oak door, not in a military camp, but in a wealthy Roman domus on the Palatine Hill. You've been invited to a cena, a dinner party. This isn't a reward, it's a fresh battlefield. You're not a legionary here, but a client, a lower status hanger-on hoping for a scrap of favor from your patron, the host. You've traded wool for a slightly musty, rented toga, the intricate draping of which feels like being trapped in a starched, white marshmallow. One wrong fold and you're marked as a bumpkin. The door swings open, and a slave guides you not into a dining room, but to the atrium, where you wait with other clients. This is the first power play. Your presence is requested for, say, the 7th hour, but you will not recline to eat until the 9th. You stand. You make polite, anxious conversation. You are being assessed. Finally, you're led to the triclinium. The room is a sensory overload. Frescoes of mythological scenes dance in the flickering lamplight. The air is thick with the smell of roasting meat, expensive incense, and the underlying, sweet rot scent of the garum fish sauce that seasons everything. You are shown to your couch. This is a minefield. The 3 couches, arranged in a U-shape, have specific places of honor. The host reclines at the top. The most prestigious guest is to his immediate right. You are directed to a lowly spot near the foot of the lowest couch. You get the message. As you awkwardly maneuver onto your left elbow, trying not to spill your toga or kick the low table in front of you, you realize the first rule: dining is a vertical, reclining sport, and you are terrible at it. Your right hand is free, for eating. You have no fork. Only a spoon for soups and your most important tool, your fingers. A slave brings a ewer of water and a towel before the meal begins. This is not a courtesy, it's a necessity. You will get profoundly messy. The food arrives, and any notion of a simple, hearty meal evaporates. This is edible theater. The first course, the gustatio, is a parade of absurdities designed to show off wealth and shock the palate. There are plates of boiled eggs with a spicy pine nut sauce. There are snails fattened on milk. There are dormice, a famous Roman delicacy, stuffed with minced pork, pepper, and nuts, then roasted or baked. You pick one up, it's tiny, glazed form looking unsettlingly like it died in a state of surprise. You take a bite. It's rich, greasy, and crunchy. The mainstream historical fact here is the staggering social importance of the scena as a stage for political maneuvering, client-patron bonding, and blatant displays of wealth. But the quirky, fringe tidbit is the alleged use of a vomitorium. Contrary to popular myth, a vomitorium was not a room for purging between courses. The word refers to the passageways and amphitheaters that spewed forth crowds. The Romans were absolutely capable of binge eating and purging, but they likely just used a basin or stepped outside. No dedicated, elegant chamber of regurgitation. Still, the expectation to eat prodigiously is real. As you navigate the dormouse, the wine flows. It's served mixed with water in a large crater, the strength dictated by the host. Tonight, he's feeling generous, or dangerous. The wine is spiced and heated, a condiment boiled with honey, saffron, and myrrh. It's cloying and medicinal. And it's almost certainly laced with defrutum, a syrup made by boiling down grape must in lead-lined pots. You don't taste the lead, of course. You just feel a slight metallic sweetness. Over the course of an evening, you'll ingest a significant dose of a potent neurotoxin, a slow, insidious poison that contributed to chronic health issues among the elite. Gout, madness, and infertility weren't just bad luck, they were, in part, symptoms of fine dining. Historians still argue whether the lead poisoning was a tragic accident of their best food preservation technology or a quiet contributor to the empire's long-term instability. The main courses, the primi mensi, arrive with fanfare. A whole roasted pig, perhaps presented with smaller, cooked birds bursting from its belly like a grotesque piñata. There might be a hare decorated to look like Pegasus. Flamingo tongues, parrotfish, sow's udders. The conversation turns as the wine deepens. This is where you must be most alert. Politics, gossip, philosophy, all are discussed in a coded, elusive language. A joke about a stubborn mule might be a critique of the emperor's policies. A poetic quote might be a subtle test of your education. Your patron asks your opinion on a recent speech in the Senate. Your mouth is full of a particularly gelatinous piece of sow's udder. Do you chew quickly and give a safe, bland answer? Do you risk a witty, possibly dangerous remark to climb the social ladder? One wrong word, one misread nuance, and you could find yourself not just off the guest list, but on the wrong side of a powerful man's memory. In Rome, a cutting insult at a dinner party could end a career, or worse. And then, amidst the boisterousness, you might witness a darker side of the entertainment. The host might call for his scurra, his professional jester, to insult the guests, a practice meant to show the host's power to orchestrate humiliation. Or, as the secundi mensae, desserts of fruits, nuts, and honey cakes, are served, he might bring in a particularly learned or beautiful slave to recite poetry. You applaud, but you're acutely aware that this person is property, a living display item. The line between guest and entertainment is perilously thin. You feel a pang of something, pity, guilt, fear, but you squash it. To show discomfort is to show weakness. The night wears on. Your elbow is numb. Your stomach churns with rich, alien food and lead-laced wine. Your head pounds from the noise and the pressure to perform. You've laughed at jokes you didn't understand, praised food that revolted you, and navigated 100 silent judgments. As you finally stumble out into the cool night air, escorted by a slave with a lamp, you feel not satisfaction, but exhaustion and a deep, visceral unease. You survived the Legionary's grind through physical endurance. Here, you've survived through a different kind of fortitude, constant, anxious vigilance. The Roman dinner party wasn't about nourishment. It was a social gladiatorial combat where the weapons were wit, status, and a tolerance for culinary shock and awe. You made it through without causing a scandal or vomiting on the host. But as you walk home through the dark, silent streets, the taste of garum and guilt still on your lips, you know this is a game you'd have to play again and again to get ahead. One day of it has left you spiritually drained. The empire wasn't just built on the legs of marching soldiers, but on the strained smiles of men reclining on couches, pretending to enjoy a stuffed dormouse while watching their backs. The cloying sweetness of spiced wine and social anxiety is washed away by a new, overwhelming sensation, a wall of sound, heat, and smell so potent it hits you like a physical force. You're no longer in a stuffy dining room, you're one face in a sea of 250,000, squeezed onto a hard, sun-baked bench in the Circus Maximus. The air vibrates with the roar of the crowd, a deep, animalistic hum that you feel in your teeth. It's race day. The sun is a merciless bronze disk in a bleached sky, and you're packed shoulder to sweaty shoulder with every stratum of Roman society, from senators in their privileged front row seats to the rabble in the upper tiers. The scent is a cocktail, cheap wine, sizzling sausage from the vendor hawking below, hot stone, animal dung from the stables, and the sharp, acrid tang of human sweat and anticipation. You are here for Ludi, the games, and this is not passive entertainment. This is a mandatory civic and religious duty, a frenzied ritual of allegiance, luck, and bloodlust that would leave your modern senses reeling. You've come to see the chariots first. The circus is an impossibly long, sandy track flanked by that iconic central spine, the spina, decorated with obelisks, statues, and 7 gilded eggs and dolphins that mark the laps. The tension is electric. The 4 teams, the reds, the whites, the blues, and the greens, aren't just sports clubs, they are surrogates for political factions, social movements, and vast, illicit betting empires. You, let's say, have scraped together a few sesterces to bet on the greens. Your neighbor, a burly butcher with garlic breath, is screaming for the blues. This isn't friendly rivalry, it's tribal warfare. The gates fly open. 12 chariots, each pulled by 4 horses in a blur of muscled fury, explode onto the track. The noise ascends to a deafening, continuous scream. They tear past you in a whirlwind of dust, color, and gleaming horseflesh, so close you can feel the wind and spray of sand on your face. The danger is immediate and grotesquely thrilling. The chariots are light, fragile things of wood and wicker. The drivers, the orgi, are strapped to their vehicles, knives in their belts to cut themselves free if, or more accurately, when, they crash. They race for 7 laps, banking around the tight turns at the meaty, the turning posts, at suicidal speeds. This is where it happens. A wheel clips another. A horse stumbles. The mainstream historical fact is the celebrity status of the winning drivers, who could become richer and more famous than senators, their names and faces plastered on murals and lamps across the empire. But the quirky, fringe tidbit is the specific, ritualized superstition. Drivers would carry good luck charms, often small figurines of gods or phalluses, and they would inhale the dust of the track, believing it held the potent, manly essence of past champions. Imagine that, a multi-millionaire athlete, before the biggest race of his life, deliberately snorting a line of ancient, sweat-and-manure-laden dirt for luck. A crash unfolds in front of you. It's not a slow-motion cinematic disaster, it's a sudden, violent disintegration. A chariot shatters, horses scream and tumble in a tangled, leg-snapping heap. The driver is dragged, a ragdoll flailing against the hard-packed earth and the hooves of the oncoming teams. The crowd doesn't gasp in horror, it roars with a heightened, visceral excitement. Some cheer the skillful driver who caused the wreck to eliminate competition. Others moan at the loss of their bet. Life is cheap here, cheaper than the horses. A team of slaves with hooks rushes onto the track to drag the wreckage and bodies clear, even as the race thunders on. You find yourself standing, screaming, your voice raw, caught in a collective frenzy. It's horrifying. It's intoxicating. You are no longer an individual with modern sensibilities. You are a cell in a roaring, bloodthirsty organism. The chariot races end. The green's lost. Your money is gone. But the day is only half over. The crowd, buzzing with spent adrenaline and renewed hunger, now floods towards the Flavian amphitheater, the Colosseum. The atmosphere shifts. The open sky of the circus is replaced by the shadowed, towering bowl of the arena. Here, the spectacle is more intimate, more deliberately brutal. The morning show is the Venatio, the beast hunts. You watch as elaborate sets of trees and fake rocks are wheeled out. Then the animals come, lions from North Africa, bears from Germania, crocodiles from the Nile. They are terrified, often half-starved to make them aggressive. Hunters, or sometimes armed criminals, are released to fight them. It's a chaotic, bloody slaughter of man and beast, a display of imperial power over the natural world. The scent of blood and animal fear now mixes with the dust. You see a bear disembowel a man before being pierced by a dozen spears. The sand soaks up the red. Then, the lunchtime intermission. This is the moment of chilling, bureaucratic cruelty. The arena is cleared. And then, common criminals, condemned men with no combat training, are marched out. They are given cheap weapons and told to fight each other to the death in mass, chaotic brawls. It's not glamorous gladiatorial combat, it's public, industrialized execution, a way to clear the prisons while providing filler entertainment. The crowd treats this as a casual distraction, talking, eating, placing side bets on who drops first. You sit through it, numb. Historians still argue whether the Roman populace was genuinely bloodthirsty or if their attendance was a form of coerced political theater, a way for the emperor to demonstrate his provision of bread and circuses and to inure the citizens to violence as an instrument of state power. Finally, the main event, the gladiators. A hush falls as they parade in, shining in bronze and steel. These are the professionals, the rock stars. They enter to music, their names chanted by factions of fans. They approach the emperor's box with the famous cry, *Ave, Imperator, morituri te salutant, *, Hail, Emperor, those who are about to die salute you. The combats are paired by type, the net and trident-wielding retiarius versus the heavily armored secure. The fights are not blind massacres, they are skilled, often slow bouts of feint and parry, governed by strict rules and referees. The crowd appreciates technique, bravery, a good show. When a gladiator is defeated, he raises a finger in submission. The referee stops the fight. The fate of the fallen is decided not by the victor, but by the editor of the games, often the emperor, who, in a performance of ultimate power, turns his thumb. But was it pollice verso, thumbs down for death? Or thumb tucked in for a closed fist, symbolizing the sheathed sword of mercy? Scholars still fiercely debate the exact gesture. The crowd screams its advice, *ugula, kill him, or *mit, let him go. The decision is a political calculation, a reflection of the crowd's mood, the fighter's popularity. You scream with them, your heart in your throat, complicit in the verdict. A death is met with a roar of approval, a grant of mercy with cheers or sometimes boos. A slave dressed as the god dispatches drags the body through the gate of death. As you file out with the exhausted, sun-drunk multitude, the adrenaline seeps away, leaving a hollow, shaky feeling. Your ears ring. Your throat is scraped raw. Your clothes are stained with spilled wine and dust. You have witnessed engineered death as mass entertainment, and you participated. You cheered. You bet. You lost yourself in the roar. The games were not a diversion from Roman life, they were the violent, pulsating heart of it, a ritual that reinforced the social order, celebrated imperial domination, and vented the pressures of a crowded, stratified city. You spent a day at the greatest shows on earth. And as you walk away, the ghostly echoes of the crowd still in your skull, you know that what you've seen would haunt your modern conscience forever. The Colosseum and circus weren't just stadiums, they were temples where the gods worshipped were chance, death, and the emperor himself. The monumental roar of the arena fades into a cacophony of a different, more immediate kind. You've left the structured violence of the games for the unstructured chaos of daily survival. You're in the Subura, the teeming, pungent, vibrant heart of plebeian Rome. If the Palatine Hill was a stage for aristocratic performance, this is the green room, cramped, messy, and brutally real. You're not a spectator here, you're a participant in a frantic, smelly, and perilous ballet of commerce and congestion. The first assault is olfactory. Forget the scent of incense or roasting meat. Here, it's a potent, eye-watering stew, the tang of urine from the fuller's shops. They used it as a degreasing agent for cloth, the earthy reek of animal manure from carts and pack mules, the sweetness of rotting vegetables, the smoke from 1,000 cooking fires, and underpinning it all, the unmistakable, ripe scent of humanity packed far too close. You take a shallow breath and start moving. Your mission, simple errands. Buy food, get a tool mended, maybe a new tunic. It sounds mundane. It's an extreme sport. The streets are not roads, they are narrow, winding canyons of shadow and noise, barely wide enough for a single cart. The buildings, insulated, tower 5, 6, even 7 stories above you, wooden structures leaning precariously inward, blotting out the sky. Washing lines crisscross the gap, dripping onto the heads below. The ground underfoot is a treacherous mix of uneven stone, slick mud, and refuse. You have to watch your step constantly, but you also have to watch the sky. A common Roman curse was *cacator, cave malum, *shitter, beware evil. Often inscribed below windows for a reason. The chamber pot's contents are unceremoniously dumped from an upper floor with a warning shout, sometimes. You duck instinctively as a cascade of something foul splatters a few paces ahead. Your modern sense of public health screams in silent terror. You press on, shoved by the crowd. Hawkers scream their wares from tiny, ground-floor shop fronts, there to Bernie. A barber shaves a customer right on the street, the razor flashing dangerously close to the jostling passers-by. A thermopolium, a hot food counter, dispenses bowls of steaming pulse and wine to standing customers, the smell of lentils momentarily cutting through the stench. You need bread. You find a baker, the rhythmic thump of the millstone driven by a blindfolded donkey in the back room. The bread is coarse, dark, and full of grit from the millstones, a leading cause of dental wear. You haggle briefly, everyone haggles. But you must be sharp. The mainstream historical fact is the astonishing density and verticality of Roman cities, with the poor crammed into dangerous, flammable apartment blocks while the rich lived in sprawling ground-floor domus. But the quirky, fringe tidbit involves those very same bakers. To prove their bread wasn't adulterated with cheaper fillings like sawdust or even white clay, some bakers would stamp their loaves with a distinctive seal, an early form of brand-name trust. One discovered stamp even boasted, made from pure wheat, for the good of the people. Your next stop is a blacksmith to mend a broken iron cooking hook. The forge is a pocket of infernal heat, the hammer blows deafening. Sparks fly. You negotiate a price, leaving the tool to be collected later. As you turn, you feel a subtle pressure at your belt. You slap a hand down and catch the wrist of a grimy, quick-fingered child. He twists free and vanishes into the crowd. Your purse is safe, but your heart hammers. Pickpockets, con artists, and slick-tongued sellers of authentic relics from the Battle of Actium are everywhere. You clutch your belongings tighter. The law here is porous. The vigilas are less a police force and more a night watch/fire brigade, notorious for being as likely to shake you down as to help you. Now, you need a new tunic. You find a cloth merchant, his stall a riot of colors, expensive Tyrian purple, vivid saffron yellows, and more common earthy tones. The fabrics feel coarse. Wool is scratchy, linen stiff. There is no cotton, no soft, pre-shrunk blends. You buy a simple, off-white tunic and feel a pang of guilt. The dye industry was monumental and foul. That famous Tyrian purple came from crushing thousands of Murex sea snails, creating a stinking, toxic slurry so potent that dye works were located downwind of cities. Your simple choice of clothing connects you to a supply chain of stench, slavery, and astronomical cost. As the day wears on, a new dread creeps in, one as constant as the noise, the fear of fire and collapse. The insulae are tinderboxes. Cooking fires are everywhere. Cheap lamps spill oil. And when a fire starts, it spreads with terrifying speed through the wooden upper floors. There are no fire escapes, only maybe a rope or ladder if you're lucky. The ground floor shops are often made of brick, but everything above is a death trap. And it's not just fire. The shoddy construction means collapses are frequent. The satirist Juvenal joked that in Rome, you lived with the perpetual fear of your house falling down on your head. This isn't a joke to you now. You look up at the groaning, leaning timbers of the building across the street and give it a wide berth. You finish your errands, your arms full, your senses overloaded, your nerves frayed. You're thirsty, but the public water from the aqueduct-fed fountains is for citizens to take home. You don't have a vessel. You consider a tavern but decide against it, wanting only to get off the street. As you head towards the dubious sanctuary of your own rented insula room, you pass a public latrine, a row of marble seats over a flowing channel. Men sit together, conducting business, chatting freely, using a shared sponge on a stick, *tersorium*, dipped in brine to clean themselves. It's the ultimate in unprivate, communal living. You hurry past. Reaching your building, you climb the dark, uneven stairs, the wood groaning underfoot, the smells of different families cooking battling in the stairwell. You unlock your single room. It's small, dark, and stuffy. You put your purchases down. You've survived the Sabura's gauntlet, the filth, the frauds, the falling waste, the constant, low-grade threat of theft or disaster. You haven't been attacked by a barbarian or a gladiator. You've been worn down by the sheer, grinding, chaotic effort of existing in the world's greatest city. The grandeur of the forums and the thrill of the games are a world away, postcards from a Rome you don't inhabit. Your Rome is this, a noisy, smelly, magnificent, and terrifying struggle for space, air, and a moment's peace. You close the shutters, but the din of the street seeps in. You wouldn't last a day. You just did. But as you sit in your dim room, listening to the endless clamor of life outside, you know you couldn't last a lifetime of them. The clamor of the street outside your insular room is suddenly drowned out by a more personal, internal sound, a sharp, twisting cramp in your gut. The dubious sausage from the thermopolium, the gritty bread, the water from the fountain that maybe wasn't as clean as it looked, it's all come home to roost. The queasy unease from the lead-laced wine at the Sena is now a full-blown, urgent revolt in your abdomen. In your time, you'd maybe reach for some Pepto-Bismol, schedule a doctor's visit. In Rome, you are facing a profound and terrifying frontier, the world of Roman medicine. Your survival now depends not on your wits or strength, but on your willingness to submit to a system where philosophy, superstition, and startling empirical observation collide, often inside your own suffering body. You have options, none of them good. You could try a home remedy. Every Roman household had its book of folk cures, passed down through generations. For diarrhea, you might be advised to drink a tea made from pomegranate peel or eat crushed poppy seeds for the pain. If you were wealthier, you might send a slave to the thermopolium not for food, but for a measure of their special ingredient, a scoop of the warm, acidic clay from the bottom of the wine amphory, thought to settle the stomach. You'd choke it down, praying the astringent properties outweigh the risk of consuming God knows what bacterial culture. But your gut spasms are worsening. You need a professional. You clutch your belly and make your way to a medicus. The doctor's office is not a sterile clinic. It's a room in his house, cluttered with jars, bunches of dried herbs hanging from the ceiling, and the faint, metallic smell of blood and vinegar. The medicus himself might be a Greek freedman. Medicine was largely a Greek-dominated field in Rome, viewed with suspicion but grudging necessity. He asks you questions, feels your forehead, examines your tongue and eyes. He operates on the theory of the four humors: blood, phlegm, yellow bile, black bile. Sickness is an imbalance. Your symptoms, cramping, fever, loose stools, suggest an excess of yellow bile, associated with heat and dryness. His goal is to restore balance. The mainstream historical fact is the advanced state of Roman surgical tools and some procedures, aided by their mastery of metalwork. Archaeologists have found intricate forceps, scalpels, bone drills, and speculums that are recognizably modern in form. But the quirky, fringe tidbit is what they might have used as an antiseptic or wound dressing. While some used vinegar or wine, there are references in texts like Pliny the Elder to using lapis infernalis, literally, stone of the underworld. This was often silver nitrate, which could cauterize but was also toxic, or sometimes it referred to a paste made from crushed cockroaches. The doctor decides your imbalance requires evacuation. To cool your overheated yellow bile, he must remove blood. He calls for his assistant, who brings a bronze bowl and a sharp, narrow blade. You are about to be bled. This isn't a precise, venous draw. It's often an arterial cut, and it will be copious. You're held still as the blade slices, and your blood pulses into the bowl. You grow lightheaded. The theory is that the bad blood, the excess humor, is leaving. In reality, you're being weakened, made more susceptible to the very infection raging inside you. After what feels like an eternity, the wound is cauterized with a hot iron or packed with a urban spiderweb poultice to staunch the flow. The room swims. But the bloodletting is just the opening act. Now comes the pharmacy. The doctor prescribes a concoction. His slave grinds ingredients with a mortar and pestle. You see dried willow bark, which contains salicylic acid, a precursor to aspirin, a rare, genuinely effective piece of empirical knowledge. You also see flakes of lead acetate, called sugar of lead, used as a sweetener and a cure for, ironically, stomach ailments. You see a dried, powdered root. It could be gentian for digestion, or it could be mandragora, mandric, a powerful narcotic and hallucinogen used as an anesthetic, its root famously forked like a human figure and said to scream when pulled from the ground. Historians still argue whether the practical, surgical know-how of Roman army doctors, honed on battlefields, ever truly integrated with the more theoretical, humor-based practices of civilian physicians, or if the two existed in parallel, separate worlds. You are given the mixture to drink in sour wine. It's horrifically bitter, with an underlying sweet tang from the lead. You gag it down. The treatment, however, is not over. For a gastrointestinal ailment, the doctor might also prescribe an enema or a suppository. The tools for this are frighteningly straightforward. The solutions could be anything from barley water and vinegar to more exotic, painful stimulants. You submit because you have no other paradigm. This is science. This is healing. As the mandric, if that's what it was, begins to fog your mind and the blood loss makes you drowsy, the doctor might then turn to divine intervention. He could recommend you make a votive offering to Asclepius, the god of medicine, perhaps in the form of a clay model of your intestines left at a temple. Medicine, religion, and magic are a seamless whole. He might even suggest an amulet to wear, a piece of jasper for the stomach, perhaps, engraved with a magical formula. You are sent home, wobbling, pallid, and now hallucinating slightly, with a small clay pot of your medicine. The instructions: rest, continue the draft, and return if the imbalance persists. As you lie on your hard bed in your insular room, the world soft and strange at the edges, you contemplate the razor's edge you walk. You could have dysentery, a simple bacterial infection that, with rehydration and time, your body might fight off. But the treatment has actively harmed you. The bleeding has weakened you. The lead is poisoning you. The mandric is dragging you into a confused stupor where you can't drink the water you desperately need. The surgery you avoided this time was always a threat. A broken limb might be set skillfully with splints, or the limb might be amputated with a saw while you were held down, biting a strap of leather, with wine as your only anesthetic. A cataract might be couched, pushed aside with a needle, by a rare specialist, or you could be blinded. Survival was a lottery. The pain in your gut eventually subsides, whether thanks to, or in spite of, the doctor's ministrations. You are left frail, anemic, and with a newfound, bone-deep fear of ever getting sick again. You realize that in the Roman world, the body was not a temple to be maintained, but a precarious battlefield where external invaders fought internal humors, and the generals in charge, the doctors, often fought with maps that were tragically, lethally wrong. You survived the day. But the cure has left its own scars, a metallic taste in your mouth that you now know isn't just in your mind. It's the taste of lead, and of an empire trying to heal itself with the very substances that were slowly poisoning it from within. The metallic taste of medicine fades, replaced by the dry, gritty dust of the road. You've recovered, or at least you're upright. A message must be sent, or relative visited in a nearby town. The city walls of Rome, which once felt like a confining cage, now seem like a bastion of civilization as you prepare to leave their shadow. You are going on a journey. This isn't a scenic grand tour, it's an exercise in vulnerability, a reminder that the empire's famous piece, the Pax Romana, was a thin veneer stretched over a vast, often wild landscape. You stand at the city gate, the Porta Capena perhaps, watching the traffic flow, lumbering ox carts piled with marble blocks, a troop of soldiers marching out with bored discipline, a wealthy man in a litter carried by 6 straining slaves. You join the stream, on foot. You have a small pack, a water skin, a stout walking staff, and a knot of anxiety in your stomach that has nothing to do with illness. The famed Roman road stretches before you, a marvel of engineering. The Via Appia is a straight, solid ribbon of fitted stone, cambered for drainage, a testament to imperial will. But up close, it's less romantic. The stones are worn smooth and slick in places, treacherous in the rain. The ditches on either side are full of stagnant water and refuse. And you are not alone on this pristine surface. You share it with every kind of traffic, and there are no rules of the road. A speeding messenger on horseback, part of the curse's public estate relay, might force you to leap into the thorny ditch without a second glance. A wagon with a broken axle blocks half the path, its driver cursing as he tries to lift it. The road, for all its glory, is a linear bottleneck of frustration and danger. As the city's noise finally fades behind you, the true nature of the countryside reveals itself. It's not all idyllic villas and fertile fields. The road cuts through stretches of dense, dark forest, *silva*, and scrubby, uncultivated land, *saltus*. This is where the empire's control grows thin. This is bandit country. Highwaymen, runaway slaves, desperate deserters from the army, they all haunt these margins. The mainstream historical fact is the profound safety the Roman roads did provide compared to what came before, enabling unprecedented movement of troops, goods, and ideas. But the quirky, fringe tidbit is the traveler's talismans against this danger. People would carve phallic symbols, known as fascinum, on milestones or wear them as amulets. The penis was considered a potent symbol of masculine power and fertility, and thus a powerful ward against evil, including the evil of bandits. You might find yourself touching a crude stone phallus on a mile marker, not as a joke, but as a sincere, anxious prayer for protection. You walk. And walk. A Roman mile is 1,000 paces, marked by those increasingly welcome stone pillars. You measure your life in miles now. Your feet, even in their sturdy caligy, begin to ache anew. There are no cozy roadside inns with vacuum-packed snacks. After a day's march, a solid 20 to 25 miles if you're fit and unlucky, you might reach a mancio, a state-run posting station for official couriers. If you're not a government official with a warrant, you might be allowed to stay, for a steep price, or you might be turned away. More likely, you seek a capona, a private inn. You approach one as dusk stains the sky purple. It's a low, dirty building of mud brick and timber by the roadside. The stable is attached, and the smell is overwhelming. The innkeeper eyes you with a mix of greed and suspicion. You pay in advance. The common room is smoky, filled with travelers of questionable character, a Syrian merchant with guarded eyes, a group of itinerant potters, a off-duty vigilist drinking heavily. You keep to yourself, eat your own hardtack and cheese, and buy a cup of whatever local wine is on offer. It tastes of vinegar and resin, used to seal the amphory. You sleep in a communal loft on a straw mattress that crackles with insect life, your pack, your pillow, your staff in your hand. Sleep is a nervous, half-awake state, listening to the snores and rustles of strangers below. The next day, you press on. You pass a villa, a large, fortified farmstead. From a distance, it looks peaceful, orderly. But you are a stranger. As you pass, a slave overseer watches you from a field, his hand on a cudgel. Dogs bark. You are a potential threat, a thief, a fugitive. You give the estate a wide berth. The celebrated unity of the empire fractures at the local level into countless pockets of parochial suspicion. You are a Roman citizen, perhaps, but here, you are just an outsider. You cross a river on a beautiful, arched stone bridge, another marvel of engineering. But lurking under its shadow, you see a few rough-looking men fishing, their glances lingering on you a little too long. You cross quickly, feeling their eyes on your back. The landscape changes again as you near your destination town. It's a provincial hub, a smaller-scale imitation of Rome. The walls are less imposing, the forum smaller, the temple to Jupiter Optimus Maximus a modest copy. But the same social hierarchies are at work, just in a compressed space. You find your relative's house, deliver your message, and are offered a spare room for the night. The relief is immense. But even here, the law is what the local magistrate or the town's leading family says it is. A dispute between your relative and a neighbor over a boundary wall could turn violent, with no higher authority to appeal to for months. Justice is local, immediate, and often brutal. Historians still argue whether the average provincial experienced the empire primarily as a burden of taxes and military conscription, or as a beneficial framework of trade, security, and legal structure. For you, right now, it feels fragile, dependent entirely on the character of the men in charge of this one, dusty town. Your return journey feels longer. The same road, the same landmarks, now tinged with a weary familiarity. The bandit threat feels more acute because your energy is lower, your vigilance waning. When you finally see the smoke and haze of Rome on the horizon, you feel a surge of something unexpected, relief. The crowded, noisy, filthy city now represents safety, anonymity, a place where you can disappear into the multitude. The road has shown you the empire's skeleton, the magnificent infrastructure, but also the nervous system, the fear, the isolation, the latent danger that pulsed between its strong points. You've traversed the world's most advanced network of highways and experienced a profound, existential loneliness. You didn't face a barbarian horde. You faced the grinding exposure of distance, the silent threat of the lonely wood, and the deep, human suspicion of strangers. The Roman peace was real, but it was a peace kept by the legionary forts on distant hills, not by a feeling of safety on the road between them. You arrive back at the city gate as the sun sets, dusty, footsore, and profoundly grateful to re-enter the chaotic, stinking, glorious womb of the eternal city. The journey outside the walls didn't broaden your horizons, it made them terrifyingly, vulnerably large. The relief of returning to Rome's chaotic embrace is short-lived. As you pass through the shadow of the city gate, you are immediately surrounded by the machinery that makes the relief, the chaos, and indeed the entire empire possible. You are jostled not just by fellow citizens, but by living, breathing property. A chain of slaves, necks in heavy wooden furcy yokes, shuffles past, their eyes on the ground, driven by a slave merchant towards the market. A well-dressed man on a litter is carried aloft by four synchronized, sweating slaves. A pedisequus, a slave boy, trails behind a matron, carrying her purchases. You have entered the bloodstream of a civilization whose every beat was powered by human bondage. To be a Roman, to enjoy the bread, the games, the roads, the very time to think and debate, was to be supported by a vast, unseen pyramid of enslaved bodies. Today, you don't just see this system through a twist of misfortune or the cold logic of the market, you experience it from within. You are no longer a citizen, a client, or a traveler. You are inventory. It begins with capture or debt. Perhaps you were a prisoner from a war in Britannia or Dacia. Perhaps your family fell into debt and sold you. Perhaps you were simply kidnapped by pirates. However it happened, you are now on the block. The slave market, the Macellum, is not like the Sabura shops. It's a place of cold, clinical assessment. You stand naked on a raised platform, the auctioneers chant a sing-song backdrop to your humiliation. Buyers probe your muscles, check your teeth like a horse, examine you for scars or signs of weakness. A chalk mark on your foot denotes your origin. You are made to walk, jump, even recite something to prove you're not mute and have a pleasant voice. The mainstream historical fact is the sheer scale. At the height of the empire, slaves may have constituted 1/3 of Italy's population, a number so vast it structured every economic and social relationship. But the quirky, fringe tidbit is the existence of a specific market, the Greco-Stadium, near the Forum, where highly educated Greek slaves, tutors, doctors, philosophers, were sold. Here, the assessment involved intellectual debate. You might be forced to quote Homer or discuss Plato's forms to prove your value, a surreal merging of the academic and the abominable. You are sold. Your fate is now a lottery dictated by your skills, your physique, and your new master's whim. You could end up in the fields, a servus rusticus, facing a life of back-breaking, monotonous toil under an overseer's whip on a vast latifundia estate, worked until your body gave out. You could become a servus urbanus, a city slave. This is a spectrum that ranges from the living hell of the mines or the ergastulum, a private prison workhouse, to the peculiarly intimate servitude of a household. You might be a cocus, cook, a tonso, barber, a pedagogus, childminder, or a lecticarius, litter-bearer. Your quality of life is entirely at the dominus' discretion. He can beat you, sexually assault you, rent you out, or kill you with near impunity. The law offered some meager protections against excessive cruelty, mainly to protect the master's investment, not your humanity. You are a res, a thing, that talks. Let's say you become a household slave in a moderately wealthy home. Your day begins before dawn and ends long after dark. You sweep, you fetch water from the fountain, a heavy, endless task. You tend the charcoal braziers, you help in the kitchen preparing the master's cena, you stand silently against the wall during dinner, ready to refill a cup or catch vomit. You are invisible until you are needed, and you must anticipate every need. You sleep in a cramped cell or on a mat in a corridor. Your diet is the simplest food, coarse bread, pulse, the scraps the family doesn't want. You own nothing. You might be allowed a peculium, a small savings, in hopes of one day buying your freedom, but that is a distant dream, a carrot on a very long stick. Your body is not your own. You can be beaten with a whip, flagrum for a dropped plate, a tardy step, a perceived insolent look. The cross, crux was a punishment reserved for slaves for certain crimes. Its lingering, public agony was a stark lesson to all in servitude. Yet, within this dehumanizing system, complex relationships bloom. A slave could become a trusted business manager, a dispensator, controlling vast sums for his master. A wet nurse or childminder could form bonds of genuine affection with her charges that lasted into their adulthood. Historians still argue whether Roman slavery was a uniquely cruel system based on racial or ethnic othering, or a more fluid, if brutal, institution where freedom was a possibility and integration, after manumission, was common. The truth is messy. Manumission was frequent, especially for urban, skilled slaves. A freedman, Libertus became a citizen, albeit with some limitations, and could rise to astonishing wealth and power. But this possibility didn't mitigate the fundamental violence of the system. It was the grease that kept it running, offering a glimmer of hope that prevented total, desperate rebellion. It made every slave complicit in their own oppression, striving to be the good one, the favored one, the one who might one day step out of the shadow. You live with a constant, low-grade fear, but also with a desperate, calculated performativity. You learn to read moods, to flatten your expression, to offer the perfect response. You develop a dual consciousness, the inner self, with its own thoughts and pains, and the outer shell, the persona of the obedient, efficient tool. You see the intimate secrets of the family, the affairs, the petty cruelties, the vulnerabilities, and you must hold that knowledge silently, a walking repository of secrets that could get you killed if you ever spoke. Your fellow slaves are your only community, but even here, trust is fraught. A jealous slave might whisper a lie about you to gain favor. Survival is a collective yet deeply solitary endeavor. As you blow out the last lamp at the end of an endless day, your feet aching, your hands chapped, you understand the true engine of Rome. The gleaming monuments, the flowing water, the abundant markets, the leisure of the baths, all of it rests on the silent, ceaseless labor of the invisible. You are the invisible. You have no legal personhood, no family that the law recognizes, no claim over your own body or children. You are a component in a machine of magnificent, cultured brutality. You've survived a day as a slave not by triumph, but by diminishment, by the careful folding away of yourself. And you know that to last a lifetime here would mean the slow erasure of who you are, until only the shell, the perfect instrumentum vocale, the talking tool, remains. The grandeur of the empire has a sound, heard only in the quiet spaces, the relentless, weary sigh of millions, breathing but not free. The suffocating silence of servitude is broken not by a word, but by an omen. A flash of lightning splits a perfectly clear sky over the Capitoline Hill. A hawk, pursued by 3 crows, wheels directly over your master's house. In the kitchen, the sacred hearth fire sputters and dies, though no draught touched it. The paterfamilias, your master, goes pale. The entire household holds its breath. This isn't mere weather or coincidence, this is communication. You have stepped into the final, inescapable layer of Roman reality, a universe saturated with the divine, where every moment is a negotiation with capricious gods, where your thoughts can attract evil, and where the state's survival is tied to the correct performance of rituals. Your physical survival through grit, social navigation, or dumb luck means nothing if you offend the cosmos. Here, in the realm of the gods, anxiety is the air you breathe. Religion isn't a Sunday morning activity, it's the operating system of daily life. Before you eat, you offer a few crumbs to the lar familiaris, the household god whose small shrine, the lararium, is in the atrium. You pour a libation of wine to Vesta, goddess of the hearth. You whisper a prayer to Janus, god of doorways, as you cross the threshold. These aren't expressions of deep piety, they are necessary maintenance, like checking the oil in your car. Forget, and you risk inviting ira deorum, the wrath of the gods, upon your household. A sudden illness, a business deal gone bad, a fire, all could be traced back to a neglected offering. The mainstream historical fact is the deeply contractual, pragmatic nature of Roman state religion. Diutida, I give so that you may give. Piety was about correct action, not interfaith. But the quirky, fringe tidbit involves the most important priests, the Flamen Dielis, dedicated to Jupiter. His life was a web of astonishing, surreal taboos. He couldn't ride a horse, touch a goat, raw meat, or ivy, look upon an army arrayed for battle, spend a night outside the city, or have a knot in his clothing. His presence was so ritually potent and fragile that he lived in a state of consecrated vulnerability, a walking lightning rod for divine power. The public world is no safer. Today is a festival day, perhaps the Lupercalia or the Saturnalia. You are swept into the streets, not for leisure, but to participate in obligatory, state-sanctioned rites that blur the line between ceremony and chaos. During the Lupercalia, naked young men from noble families, the Luperci, run through the streets, striking women with strips of goat hide to ensure fertility. It's shocking, primal, and everyone treats it as normal, necessary magic. You must attend the sacrifices at the temple of Jupiter Optimus Maximus. The smell of incense can't mask the iron-rich scent of blood as a perfect white bull is stunned, its throat slit, its entrails examined by the Haruspex, the diviner. The crowd watches, not with horror, but with intense anticipation. The future of the state, the success of the next military campaign, depends on the liver of this animal. If the liver is diseased or malformed, the omens are bad, and the entire ceremony might need repeating until the gods send a favorable sign. Historians still argue whether the educated elite genuinely believed in the literal truth of these divinations or viewed them as a necessary political tool for validating decisions and controlling the populace. For you, in the crowd, the question is moot. The reality is the ritual, and the ritual is unassailable. But the gods of the state are just the most visible layer. Beneath it thrives a terrifying world of personal magic and malice. You have a rival in business, a neighbor you've argued with. It's not paranoia to think they might have commissioned a defixio, a curse tablet. Made of thin lead sheet, the curse would be scratched onto it. I curse the tongue and the hands of Gaius, the shopkeeper who slandered me. Let him be mute and crippled. Bind him, Hecate. The tablet would then be folded, pierced with a nail, and deposited in a grave, a well, or a sacred spring, given to the chthonic gods and spirits of the dead to execute. You might never know it was done, but when your hands ache or you lose your voice, you'd wonder. Protection exists, but it's a constant arms race. You wear amulets, a bola if you're a child, a carved gemstone in a ring, perhaps a piece of jet to ward off the evil eye. You might even keep a small, grotesque statue of a phallus in your house, not as pornography, but as a protective force against envy and supernatural attack. And then there are the foreign gods, creeping in from the edges of the empire. In the back room of a shop in the Subura, you might find initiates of the cult of Mithras, a soldier's god, participating in a secret, bloody initiation involving a simulated death in a tauroctony, bull-slaying, scene. Or you might hear whispers of the Christians, who meet in the dark, are rumored to drink blood and eat flesh in their rites, and who refuse to sacrifice to the emperor's genius. Their atheism, their denial of all gods, is seen as deeply dangerous, a pollutant that could bring divine retribution on the entire city. To be associated with them is social and legal suicide. Your own private spiritual longing is a luxury you cannot afford. Deviation is treason, both political and cosmic. As night falls, the anxiety doesn't lift, it deepens. Night belongs to the lemurs, the restless, vengeful spirits of the dead. There's the Paranalia festival to honor your ancestors, but if you neglect them, they become lemurs who haunt you. Every odd noise in your insula, a creak, a rat scratching, could be a spirit. You lay in the dark, and the rational part of you knows it's just the old building settling. But the Roman part of you, the part that has been conditioned since birth, holds its breath. You think of every minor ritual you might have rushed today. Did you give enough to the Lauras? Did you accidentally say something blasphemous? Is that strange dream you had last night a prophecy or just bad cheese? You live in a world where science, religion, and magic are indistinguishable. A plague is both a miasma of bad air and a punishment from Apollo. A successful business deal is both shrewd negotiation and the favor of Mercury. Your existence is a continuous, low-grade negotiation with invisible forces. There is no secular refuge, no private space where the gods cannot see you. Even your thoughts are not entirely your own, as they might attract the attention of envious spirits or hostile magic. You've survived the legions, the dinner parties, the slums, the doctors, the roads, and slavery. But can you survive a universe that is actively, personally watching you, a universe where a sneeze at the wrong moment can be an ill omen that derails a Senate vote? The pressure is metaphysical and unrelenting. To be Roman is to walk a tightrope of piety over an abyss of divine caprice, where the only safety lies in the meticulous, superstitious, and never-ending performance of rites. You close your eyes, but sleep brings dreams, and dreams are just another channel for the gods to speak. There is no rest, only a temporary, fragile ceasefire in an eternal divine Cold War. And so, the day ends. Not with a bang, but with the slow, weary exhalation of a city of a million souls, each one navigating their own tightrope over the same dizzying abyss. The final, smoky twilight settles over the tile roofs, the towering insulae, the silent forums. The cries of hawkers, the rumble of carts, the distant roar from the circus, all have softened into a murmurous hum, the city's own breath as it settles into darkness. You lie in your space, whatever that space may be, the cramped barracks bunk, the rented insula room, the slave's pallet in the corridor, the triclinium couch still smelling of spiced wine. Your body holds the memory of the day, the ache in your feet from the road, the ghost of a cramp in your gut, the sting of sun on your neck from the arena, the residual tension in your shoulders from 100 unspoken social calculations. You close your eyes, and the vivid, terrifying, magnificent tapestry of Roman life begins to soften at the edges, losing its hard, glaring contrasts. The stern face of the centurion blurs with the laughing mask of the dinner party guest. The roar of the chariot crowd melts into the gentle splash of the public fountain. The sharp, clinical smell of the doctor's herbs fades into the comforting, earthy scent of a straw mattress. It was all too much, wasn't it? Too loud, too bright, too cruel, too demanding. A world of glorious, grinding extremity. But here, in the quiet dark, a different truth emerges. You didn't just witness history, you felt its texture, the grit, the sweat, the cold marble, the rough wool. You understood, in your bones, that survival there was not about heroism, but about endurance. About getting up when the centurion's staff rapped, about swallowing the strange food with a smile, about taking the next step on the endless road, about finding a moment of quiet defiance within a soul-crushing system. You carried the weight. You felt the fear. And you made it to the end of this one, very long day. Let that feeling go now. Let the images drift away like smoke from a dying watchfire. The gods are sleeping. The streets are still. The great, relentless machine of empire is idling for a few precious hours. You are here, in your own time, in your own safe darkness. The journey is over. The past is a story, and the story is told. Breathe deeply. Let the calm of this quiet night wash over you, a gentle tide smoothing the sand of your thoughts. There is no march to make tomorrow, no omen to read, no patron to please. There is only peace, and the deep, welcoming silence that follows the end of a long tale. Let it pull you under, into soft, dreamless sleep.